On the agenda. First person on the agenda is Chief Keith Meadows with the police department, and then Chief Chad Jones, fire representatives.
Hey, Miss Marilyn.
Yes, sir.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. Before we get started, can I just lead off with a word of prayer, please?
You certainly may.
Okay, Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to be here today. Thank you for our leaders. Thank you for our first responders. Thank you for all of those who's involved in making the city of Sandtown, District 1, a much better place to be. Heavenly Father, thank you for all of your blessings, for all of your hugs, for all of your forgiveness, Heavenly Father, for allowing us to be who we are. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We need to step on our agenda. Prayer. Okay, if our police chief is here, we're ready to get started. I don't know if he is or not, or if he has a representative here for him. Or our fire representative, if he's here.
Good evening. My name is Deputy Chief Hilda Moses, and I'll be representing the Fire Chief Chad Jones.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to present. If I may, I would like to go ahead and just share some of the things that are coming from the fire department. First of all, we'd like to emphasize that there have been several fatalities in motor vehicle accidents in the city of South Fulton. Many of them are involving entrapments, and it's becoming an issue or a problem for our community. And so, again, we're going to perhaps maybe start looking at doing or conducting a community risk analysis to determine what we could do to address this particular problem and see what things are, what processes we can put in place to help. Not, of course, we won't ever be able to entirely eliminate it, but to hopefully lessen the number of motor vehicle crashes that we see on our roadways and state highways. Also, I wanted to share that we had our first annual Camp Embers. It is a camp that was solely directed at young female high school students within the city and also to South Fulton County schools. It was a huge success. And by that, I mean that we've had, in total, our first class was 9 attendees. 2 of those attendees have put in their applications, and we are currently vetting them through the hiring process to come join our department. So we're really, really excited about that. Also, too, we have a promotion process going on. We're going to first begin by identifying those members who want to transfer to openings throughout the city. Once these individuals are vetted for the positions, but they do because of the fact that they meet the certification requirements or whatever requirements that are unique to that position. After we complete the transfer process, then we'll move over to the promotion process, which begins tomorrow morning. With that, we'll be involving the firefighters to come in and to put in their bids for the openings that we have. So what we're looking at right now is that we're going to have a captain position in emergency management that will work within the capacity of what we define as community risk reduction. The position will manage and continue to develop the following programs: Camp Embers, which I previously mentioned, Sparks CTA program. This program is going to be a program that's going to go out to, hopefully beginning with Westlake and then with other schools, where we can go and identify those juniors and seniors who want to begin a career or possibly consider a career either in the fire service or emergency medical services. We hope to have that particular program up and running by August. Another part of that CRR captain position will be the car seat technician program. That person will also manage that, and then we can have particular car seat events throughout the city. And if I would like to share that if anybody wants to have or wants to host a car seat safety event or any other kind of event related to safety overall with respect to fire or fire prevention, please feel free to email CRR, that's Charlie Romeo Romeo, at cityofsouthfultonga.gov. Just put in your request through that email site. It's an organizational box for our division, and we'll be able to accommodate your request. let's see what else I have here. We do have hired on 8. We filled 8 vacancies also too this month, and we are going to have a promotion. Well, not necessarily promotion. We're going to have a welcome ceremony for those 8 recruits that are coming on board with our department. Now, I misspeak when I say recruits, because all of these individuals are certified firefighters. They come in fully certified as a firefighter too, and also too with either EMS, either EMTB or EMTA. So they will also bring in a unique component to be able to augment and to staff for our emergency medical services within the city. And last but not least, we also have the lieutenant position promotions that are ongoing too. And it looks like that we're going to be promoting for 10 positions for within the department. So there are a number of lieutenant positions that are vacant right now at Station 11 and Station 7. And then we also to have a lieutenant position that was been vacant for the fire marshal's office. And we are delighted to learn that that position will be filled through this promotion process. And that's all that I have to share for the fire side. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, we thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule to come and be with us tonight. Thank you very much. That information that you gave us was most important. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody here from the fire department right now? Okay, if not, is there? Okay, if not, we will go on with our legislative update with our representative, Roger Bruce.
All right, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Most of the legislative session dealt with the redrawing of the maps that came about as a result of the census being taken. As you know, we have to do it every 10 years. And normally that process is a process that is done by local legislation, which means that the local delegation would pretty much approve the maps and then take it to the general body for final approval. But this year, that didn't happen. And almost all of the metro areas and areas that are headed by African Americans were treated as general bills. And the reason that they did that was to be able to draw the lines the way they wanted to draw them and be able to get them approved. They would not have been able to get them approved through the local delegations, so they went around the local delegations in almost all of the metro areas. We ended up filing a lawsuit as a result of that action. The courts did not take action on it. The cases are still pending, but the elections have already started, so it's not likely that there will be any changes while the election is going on. But the lines could end up being changed sometime later in the year whenever the courts decide to act on it. I don't know if that will undo any elections, but it's still pending. Also, we had House Bill 389. For those of you that are employees, if you're working for somebody and it's not clear whether you are a contractor or an employee, this piece of legislation clarifies that. If you are basically getting direction from an individual telling you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, then you're an employee and you are to get all of the benefits of being an employee with whatever that organization is. Senate Bill 468 is a public safety. It says that if a public safety worker commits suicide within 30 days of the last day they work, that the insurance companies have to treat that as if that person was injured in action, and the families of those individuals would get all the benefits of someone who is working for the police or fire department or other public safety. That came about because there were several instances, mostly in South Georgia, where public safety officials did commit suicide and the families were left just stranded. And so that was to try to rectify that. House Bill 1464, it causes some concern because it empowers the GBI to launch its own investigations into voting fraud complaints. Even if the Secretary of State has indicated see any fraud or there's no issue, the GBI can still launch its own investigation. One of the concerns with this bill is that in the process of doing those investigations, they could subpoena the ballots while they're still being counted. And that's of concern because you don't know what's going to happen with those ballots. And it could cause some concern about the outcome of the election. House Bill 1437 gives you a tax cut. The Georgia state tax right now is 5.75, and it will go down to 5.25. And it basically creates a flat tax. There will also be a few exemptions. The charitable donations and healthcare, health savings plans would still be allowed the exemption. I don't know if you want me to go over that, but there's a lot of bills that were dealt with. One of the biggest ones and one of the best ones was that we forced the insurance companies to treat mental illness like any other illness. And it also will probably lead to opening up some of these mental health facilities and getting some of these people that are living under these bridges into some facility where they can get the kind of care that they need. House Bill 78 increases the attention that will be drawn to state contracts to try to make sure that there's more of an equal or balance in contracts going to minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. House Bill 132 is the bill that brought the Fulton industrial area into the city of South Fulton. And that added 12 million in revenue to the city of South Fulton that we did not have before. And that should hopefully help, with the balancing out your tax, your property tax, so it won't have to go up. There was some concern too about people, creating these communities, buying up all these houses and taking those houses and turning them into rental property, the entire community. And a bill was passed that would prohibit local governments from regulating that. That bill is probably going to end up in court as well, because it's really a local issue and the state really shouldn't have been involved with it. So that one is going to end up in court too. House Bill 1390 creates a state law that prohibits any kind of discrimination against based on gender. And it would allow for a woman who feels that she's been in some way discriminated against to file suit under the laws that deal with sexual harassment, and which gives it more teeth and gives more protection to women being harassed in any way or being forced to or anyway discriminated against based on gender. Those were the main we had a bill that fortunately did not go all the way through the process, which was, and it's going to come back up, that would allow people to make a complaint that they are not, that they don't like the way a teacher is teaching about African American history, which is, basically they're trying to change history. There were some complaints from people that, talking about slavery and talking about the revolution, so to speak, and things that were happening in the 50s and 60s were uncomfortable for some of these students and some of the parents. And this would have prevented teachers from teaching that. As I said, it did not pass, but something tells me it's going to come back up during the next session. Those were the main things. There were some questions about this hospital on Cleveland Avenue closing. The hospital is not closing. They're changing their method of operation because the 30% of their population, the patients didn't pay their bills, and they just couldn't afford to continue to operate the way they were. So they are they're changing their model to provide 24-hour special care, but it's just not emergency care like the normal emergency room. And we passed the budget. We gave $287 million for teacher pay raises, $12.4 million to give teachers assistance with their classroom expenses. Right now, a lot of these teachers are paying their classroom expenses out of their pocket, and this would give them some help with that. $188 million to buy new buses. A lot of the buses were dilapidated, and they wanted to pay for new buses. And last but not least, the Family Fun Day that I do every year out of Sweetwater Creek State Park. We couldn't do it the last 2 years because of COVID. We are going to do it this year on May 14th. I stocked the lake with about 2,500 pounds of fish, and we provide all the kids that come with fishing poles, and we teach them how to fish. And we have the biggest fish fry you probably ever saw, and everybody's welcome to come. That's it. I don't know if there's any questions, but I'll be glad to take them.
One question I have, Representative Bruce, is a lot of people don't understand what it takes to open a new hospital and all about the certificate of need. Is that something that you could briefly talk about?
Yeah. In order to open a hospital, the very first step is that you have to get what they call a certificate of need, which is a study is done to determine whether or not the hospital can sustain itself. It's kind of a weird process because the certificate of need has to be approved by your competitors, competing hospitals, along with others. But it's a difficult process. The hospital that was over off of what is it?
Cleveland Avenue.
Not Cleveland, the other one. Cleveland is a privately owned hospital. Almost all hospitals are privately owned, including Grady. A lot of people don't realize it, but Grady is a privately owned hospital that has a contract to do business with the city, with the county, Fulton and DeKalb. And part of that contract is that Fulton and DeKalb has to subsidize the hospital to cover the cost of those people that go that don't pay or don't have insurance. If not for that, Grady would probably have a tough time staying open too. But with regard to opening a new one, the last numbers I saw was close to $1 billion to just get the process going. And there's not very many that will invest $1 billion in any enterprise that is not going to make a profit. And that's part of the certificate of need process, part of the independent people that are considering investing. They're going to be looking at that, whether or not they can get a return on their investment. And so far, you know, there's not a whole lot of people chomping at the bits to open up a business that's not profitable. So that's what we're dealing with. And what's happening is that the medical industry is having to reinvent itself all over the country and come up with other ways that are less expensive than the traditional hospitals to deliver the services that people need. Did I answer your question, Harvey?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you for allowing me to participate, and hope to see you guys at the Family Fun Day.
What time does that begin?
It starts at 9, but traditionally, by the time I get there at 7, kids are already there waiting for their fishing pole. Have you been before?
No, but I hear about it every year.
You heard about it.
Yeah.
The
And
kids
it's
have a great
always a
time.
success. I want to see if I get, I say it's always a success. And I want to see if I can get my grandchildren there this year.
Yeah, they would have a great time. And get there early, you know, so you can get your fishing poles if you don't have them.
Okay. Thank you very much. Very much. Is Miss Franchesca Warren here? And
I am. Good afternoon, everyone.
good afternoon. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Can you guys hear me? Is there a feedback? Okay,
Doing good.
perfect. So I wanted to start with, we are 2 Mondays away from the end of school. So we are so excited we were able to make it through the school year. And I'm going to start to discuss, if anyone can allow me to screen share, I want to discuss some of the changes that we're having to our code of conduct, along with redistricting and sneaking in our plans for K-8 STEAM academies.
Donald, can you do that, Donald? Or can I?
Harvey,
Yes.
I'm making you host,
Okay. Okay.
and you would have to allow her to screen share. I can't do it from my phone.
That's fine.
Harvey, you are now the host.
Okay. And down at the bottom, it says screen share for myself, but for her,
Right.
I need to.
To the very, there's a drop down arrow next to screen share on your computer.
Okay.
Click that drop down arrow and say multiple. Click on the multiple. You got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now she's ready.
Okay.
Absolutely. So any questions that you guys may have, you can ask me in the comments, or when I pause, you can ask me. So one of the things that we have recognized this year is that coming back from COVID, there were some behaviors that we noticed in children that we wanted to address. Before I go into this, I want to make it very clear that before we get to the point where we have to be so punitive, the school system does offer a variety of mental health resources. We do offer counseling for students. We do offer mentorships. We've partnered with the current DA's office and some of the things that she's doing in mentoring some of our students. But these are things that we wanted to address in the code of conduct to make sure that learning is at the forefront of all that we do. So I'm going to hop on right here. We have starting next year, we are prohibiting the use of personal communication devices during the school day. What that means, that means phones. For K-5, students will not be able to have their phones out during the school day. They can on the bus if a parent needs to get a hold of them, but we are drawing a very hard line around K-5 students having cell phones. And I'm gonna tell you why, but it's gonna go to the next rule at the bottom. For our 6-12 students, they cannot have them in instructional classes unless a teacher explicitly says they are using them for instruction and it does not impede instructional time. So there will be an AJC article coming out very soon about that. That was a very hot topic. People will talk about it in your communities. But we have seen all types of behavior where students are going into the bathroom as young as second grade with cell phones, recording each other, making TikToks. And so this goes to the next rule around inappropriate recording, distribution using personal cell phones. So we are moving that to a tier 3, which makes it much heavier of an offense. And so we want parents to know that. Some of the things that we've seen are really egregious acts. Kids are not only filming them, but airdropping them in schools and just causing all kinds of time away from our administrators of being in classrooms and working with teachers. And instead they're having to spend the majority of their day investigating things that are happening outside of school. We have also made a new rule about bus interference while in motion. This includes parents who have cut off the bus or attempt to come onto the bus when the bus stops, or children who are on the bus and they may throw a water bottle. They might not think it's a big deal, but they throw it out of the window and they're on Camp Creek Parkway and it goes into someone's car. So we have moved that up to a tier 3. Also, for the rules, we have increased, we held a work session about this not too long ago. And one of the things that we recognized is that there were situations that were very severe. For example, battery of a student with injury that was a tier 3 that automatically becomes a tier 4, which is automatic battery of a student with injury, automatic 10-day suspension, and you will likely go to tribunal. Bullying in the state of Georgia has a very specific definition. For example, there will be people who say my child is being bullied because someone called them a name. That's not really bullying, that's teasing and taunting. But in the state of Georgia, we have a very clear defined definition of bullying, because once you've been found guilty of bullying 3 times, it is state law that we send you to alternative school. So we have to be very clear with that state definition for legal reasons. So we have moved bullying from tier 3 to tier 4. Forceful abduction, it happens all across the country, but we wanted to be really clear of a child who may or may not be having a bad day and goes into a classroom and refuses to leave or refuses to let other people leave. So we've increased that from a tier 3 to a tier 4. And we've taken teasing and taunting because it can lead into bullying from a tier 1 to a tier 2. These are current editions of the code of conduct. But these are in response to the behaviors that we have seen this 2021-2022 school year. Something else I want to highlight, there are always lots of conversations in the community about what happens when a child gets in trouble, what happens when we find a weapon. If you bring a weapon, unloaded or loaded, in grades 6 through 12, it is permanent expulsion from Fulton County schools. This has been the case, but we have teased it out of the code of conduct and clearly said that. Many times when something happens, people assume a kid has been found with something, they're able to go back to school after 10 days. No, it's a permanent expulsion. They cannot come back from Fulton County. This includes the aerosol guns, the ones they use like in paintball. This includes inches over a certain amount of inches of length. And so that's really important. Another point that's not on here that we talk specifically about are group fights. If there's a fight with more than 2 students in it, and it is a group fight of kids, we've been doing it all this year, 10 days, and we send you to tribunal for referral for alternative school. In addition, we have updated a lot of our technology descriptions to be current with current trends. We have found that kids as young as 2nd grade sometimes know how to manipulate a computer so they can get on whatever they want to get on. So we've just updated our code of conduct so we can address that. One of the conversations that I had with an elementary school parent is whenever kids are able to bypass certain protections on our computers, it leaves our whole network vulnerable. And so we are very, very strict on that. We've also added a link to our threat assessment protocol for all threats. So we have 3 levels, and just making sure everybody, it's in the code of conduct and is very clear. We've also separated possession and distribution for alcohol and drug use. And we've taken the 75 page document, which is the code of conduct, and made it a little clearer for parents. One of the things that came up in the conversation on Tuesday was there are always parents who say, my child was in an altercation with another child. What happened to the other child? We are bound by FERPA that we cannot discuss discipline of another child. We can discuss your discipline with your child, but we cannot discuss what happens to another child. And so one of the things that parents have a really hard time with is something has happened. I don't know what happened to the other child, and they take it as nothing has happened. I can tell you for about 99% of the cases that the child is given appropriate consequences. One of the things that we get lots of calls on is that my child is being bullied. And we pull back the layers of after hours and hours of investigations, we usually find that there has been some type of incident off of school campus with phones that has been brought to the school. And so we have to, even though it has happened off campus, we have to address it at school. And so we use these rules to kind of guide what we do and how we do certain things. So I'm going to stop on the code of conduct. I think one person has their hand up because we have 2 more presentations to get through, but I know that that's a lot for people. So if you want to leave your questions in the chat or come off mute.
Hi,
Go ahead,
yes.
Shay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. That all of that sounds really good. I just had one question about the cell phones. You say that y'all are basically limiting them not to be used during the day. My question is, why are they just not being eliminated, period, from the school environment? Thank you.
Thank you for that. So it's a couple of reasons, and I think there's feedback. So there's a couple of reasons is that it would take a lot of manpower for us to stop everybody when they come into the schools and not and take them from children. The belief is what we're going to do is we find you with them and they are not being used during instructional time, we will confiscate them. We will not do it upon them entering the schools. And also we want to keep the parental responsibility in that it is their responsibility to make sure their children do not have these devices at schools. And I really wanted to make sure that people understood that. So 612, there are legitimate reasons that a child may have a phone in grades 6 through 12, whether it's for a research project, whether they're using Adobe on their phone for art, whether they're recording a video for their video class at Westlake. So there are legitimate. K-5, they will not be able to have them. And if we see them out, we will confiscate them and the parent will have to come and get them. So we are trying to keep that parental responsibility of knowing this, communicating this so they know, so that we don't interrupt valuable class time.
Can I ask her a question?
Sure.
The devices, there are other devices that you can use to talk on, you know, like if you have an iPad or iPod or all these other things, even a computer, you don't even need a phone anymore.
Right.
How are you dealing with those?
So we are going to also ask for them to be off of our Wi-Fi. So there is a state law, actually it's not a state law, I think it's a national law where we cannot jam our Wi-Fi and just not allow them, but we are tightening up our Wi-Fi, but that includes for K-5, Apple Watches, things of those devices, we are taking them. We probably spend, any administrator on a good day is spending 3 to 4 hours just on one incident that happens outside of the school. 3 to 4 hours investigating, taking statements, calling Fulton County Police, calling parents, getting statements. It's gotten to the point where we can't focus on instruction because of these cell phones. Somebody asked in a chat, you know, what is causing this? I think parents want to feel close to their children while they're at school, but especially K-5, you can call to the front office. There are other ways to get in contact with your child, but what we are seeing is just the sheer amount of incidents that are happening are 9 times out of 10 happening from cell phone usage off of campus. And so we're shutting them down during the school day. Before I go into the next presentation, I'm going to stop
Can
sharing.
I ask a
for
quick
1 second.
question?
Absolutely.
Good evening, Francesca. With respect to the phone, you said it was moved up to tier 3. What is that? Is it just confiscation? And then the part 2 to that question is, how are you guys going to safeguard the privacy of the individual's phone? Meaning, if that phone is unlocked or their information might be exposed, how are you guys making sure that that's safeguarded?
So usually what happens when a phone's child is we lock it up in the front and the parent has until the end of the day to come get it. So we do not keep phones overnight. The parent, and after a certain amount of time, we apply consequences. So the first time, the second time, we're going to ask you, please come get this. The child cannot have it. But after that, we have to start having some other consequences, and those haven't been fleshed out yet. But that is one of the main reasons that we're telling parents, keep your K-5 students' phone at home. If you are a 612 student, you can't have them in class, but you can use them in the lunchroom because that's not instructional. You can use them on the bus. You can use them with a teacher's permission if it is instructionally needed. So while we don't have the physical time to go into students' phones and look for something personal, so we just tell them, cut it off, put it off until you're able to use it. This is going to be a big deal, but if you see around the country, school districts across the country are going into this. We are having so many issues with student privacies of students recording other students, students uploading it, students airdropping it, students instigating, parents instigating, community members instigating situations, and it boiling over in the schools. And we just cannot stand for it any longer.
Thank you.
No problem. I'm going to now go into our facilities master plan. In this upcoming fall semester, we are going to start the process of rezoning both north and south. So in North Fulton and South Fulton, we are going to start rezoning. In North Fulton, they are rezoning because they have a lot of elementary school space. And in South Fulton, we are rezoning because we have seen an unprecedented amount of growth in our community. So I'm going to share this so everybody can see it, and start with the very first one. So of course, let's go back. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So one of the things that we are seeing with our growth is that it is, something's wrong with my computer, sorry. So we are doing 2 things at once. So we are looking at our facilities master plan 2027, and we're going to talk about redistricting. So let's go into some of the considerations that we're going to do. So let's look at South Fulton capacity. This is a very important slide for people to see and for people to know. In elementary schools, we have roughly about 13,000 children. And remember, when I came last year, I talked to you guys about there are less kindergartners less seniors than kindergarten. No, it's reverse. There are less kindergartners entering our system than high schoolers graduating. And so if you see the enrollment, about 13,000 in elementary, in middle school, about 6,000. And if you look at the years, we expect a decline. In elementary, we expect an uptick. And in high school, we expect an uptick. But one of the things that we have said is that we have to account for a lot of this growth. And so when we say South Fulton enrollment, District 4, which is the Westlake, Creekside, and Langston Hughes cluster, we do not have many schools that are under capacity. The vast majority of our schools are at capacity, nearing capacity, or already over capacity, minus a few. So one of the idea sets that we have had, and the Palmetto community is actually very interested in this, is that we are thinking about taking Palmetto Elementary School and either converting the existing elementary, it used to be a high school, and make it into a STEAM K-8. That would take some of the overcrowding of EC West and Renaissance Elementary, and that would make them come down to Palmetto and a K-8. If this happens, Right now, enrollment at Palmetto Elementary School is 304 students, while at EC West, we have over 800 kids. So in that Palmetto area where there are tons of subdivisions, tons of planned development happening in Palmetto, Chattahoochee Hills, and City of South Fulton, this is one of the ideas that we have to take the overcrowding from EC West, but also going into Camp Creek, which we are due to get a new school in the 2027 capital plan. And so we have 3 considerations on the table: make Camp Creek into a K-8, rebuild Camp Creek as a regular middle school, or rebuild it as a smaller middle school. We have not decided. In the month of May and June, we will have Ingrid Huff going out to the communities and getting feedback on what they think. Either way, Camp Creek is going to either be rebuilt, reconfigured for this next upcoming capital plan. If you look at the chart right here, you can very, very clearly see that Camp Creek Middle School is very small. It has about 577 students. Meanwhile, Sandtown Middle School is about close to 1,100. Renaissance Middle School and Bear Creek Middle School are well over that. Renaissance has about 12 and Bear Creek has about closer to 1,300 kids. So when we talk about the K-8 elementary school that we're planning in Palmetto, that is going to relieve some of this. But all of it will not be fixed by just building and reconfiguring facilities. We are going to have to redistrict. Before I get to that, I showed you a slide of South Fulton capacity, but I'm going to show you North Fulton capacity. And this is very important for what's going to happen, because people will say, you know, why is it that we're not building schools, or what is happening, or we're not doing it quick enough? There's a couple of things going on. So if you look in North Fulton, their enrollment is declining, and they have many more open elementary seats up there. Because the building is happening down in South Fulton now. In middle school, they're going to decline in enrollment, and in high school, they're going to decline. So they're declining at each level. But as you can see, the numbers are considerably bigger. So 16,000 versus our 9,000. But in these numbers in North Fulton, it does not account for the students who live in South Fulton, who attend school in North Fulton. So that's an important point to consider as we go through for some of this. In addition, one of the things, as we talked about, North Fulton will also be rezoning, redistricting. They are working through their own K-8 facilities at 2 of their
We lost
middle
your audio.
schools. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So they are looking at also 2 K-8 buildings up there. As you can see from this slide, it is not red like ours. It's not the shades of red. So the more blue that you are, the more capacity that you have. The further you are to red, the less capacity that you have. One of the things that we're going to be looking at is there are going to be 2 things happening simultaneously. So we have staff going out this month, next month, and July talking about K-8 STEAM. These are not things that have been already decided in stone. We're going to be getting feedback and coming back to the community with that. But starting in August, we will start the process of redistricting. And I'm going to say this because I've told people this, it's really for a scope for a couple of things. We have to target North Fulton elementary schools in our upper north central region. We have to redistrict around Crabapple, but also our capacity imbalance at targeted South Fulton elementary schools. So we have EC West that has closer to 900 and Wolf Creek, whereas we have other schools that have lower enrollment. And so we are looking on how can we best use taxpayers' money to bring some students to balance out these buildings, but also looking at the capacity imbalance at 7 of our South Fulton middle schools and our capacity imbalance at 5 of our South Fulton high schools. So Westlake roughly has about 2,300 students. Langston Hughes has roughly about 2,100, and Creekside has about 1,800. These schools are, when we redistrict, there are current students who live closer to other schools, but who cross over and come to one of those 3 schools. So in the redistricting, we're going to address that, but also knowing that we have 2 schools, Banneker and Tri-Cities, that do not have the numbers as the other 3 schools. And so we have to figure out how we're going to redistrict. So in the fall, there are going to be 2 host sites, Alpharetta High School and Langston Hughes High School, where we are going to have redistricting 101 so that the community will know the process. So as you look at these slides right here, and this is what you'll hear all summer, this is what you'll hear at my community meeting on Monday, starting August 30th. I have asked staff if they can start in July, just to make sure that all parents can hear it. Because the thing with redistricting is that we're focusing on the high schools, but it will have implications for the middle and elementary. We're focusing, so we can't say specifically these schools will be rezoned, because in South Fulton, we are experiencing so much growth, it doesn't, it's going to affect everyone. And so you're going to see round 1, what's going to happen in North Fulton. You're going to see what's happened in South Fulton. Then you're going to see round 2, round 3, and then our final recommendations. I've had several people come to me and say, you know, I really love being in this school. I want to stay at this school. I want to do this. And one of the things that I always encourage people is that we are faced with the daunting task of making sure that we use tax dollars appropriately and fill up schools, but also recognizing that some people do not want to attend certain schools and trying to work around that. So I want the community to know that it is going to happen. It's going to happen on the north side also. And we are just going to have to make some tough decisions. I think one of the issues around redistricting is that that makes it so tedious is that we are going through, and if you look at North Fulton, they have more high schools because all the growth was happening up there at one point. Now the growth is happening down here. So theoretically, if you have 2 schools that are under enrolled in South Fulton, if students who were going other places came back to those schools, in the next year, in the next couple of years, we are going to have to build more high schools just for the amount of more schools, period, but just for the amount of development that we're having. There are people who will say, you know, stop the development, we don't need it. But as you see every day on social media with people wanting various eateries and different things, the development drives how we build schools. And one of the things that I've been in contact with is our department, we see the developments that are coming. So we look at the permits that are pulled, the ones that are being asked. And one of the things that we are very keenly aware of is in District 4 in the city of South Fulton, there are several really big developments coming down there. And so we are constantly meeting with some of the economic development and some of the developers, not me, but our staff, around what their plans are, what the timetable looks like. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 2 years? But the harsh reality is that because South Fulton is growing, we are going to probably have to redistrict this fall, but I would not be surprised in the next 2 to 3, maybe even 4 more years, us having to continue to redistrict to address the number of families that are moving to South Fulton specifically. I'll pause right here. I know people probably have questions that they want answered. Somebody asked about the master plan. I think Mr. Davis put that in the chat. All of it is online. In addition, if you go to Fulton County School Board, you can see a taped version of not only the presentation, but the questions that we asked from this. One of the biggest things that we have that we see, especially in the Westlake cluster, there are students who do not live in the area attending the school. And so this whole year we have been sending verifications so that we can make sure that the students who live over here or they're on magnet are the ones that are attending. And so it has been very difficult for us to make sure that people are not using other people's addresses. And so that's something our staff has been involved with this whole second semester, because it really, if you look at the numbers, it skews a lot of the work. And so we have, for the last semester, been sending emails, verifying documents, and reaching out to families that we believe do not live in the area, currently live in the area. So any questions and or concerns?
I'm just curious, how many How many students do you find, for instance, at Westlake that should not be there every year?
I would say roughly 5 to 10%.
Wow.
5 to 10%. And one of the things that we've recognized is that people love Westlake. My son graduated from Westlake, but it's not fair for the students who currently live there for us to currently attend and who live in the area, for us to have so many kids out of zone when it's just becoming too crowded. And so we will redistrict, people will be upset, but we have to, there's nowhere else for them to go. And it's not fair for students at Westlake to have 40 kids in a class when we can redistrict, when there are other schools who not only have the programs and the facilities for those students, but also once we fill up those schools, that is the case for us to build more high schools. And I haven't addressed the STEM high school that we have. They have a lot of space. And so every year they've been adding on a grade. But that is also an option, but we don't zone kids to the STEM school. They go there by choice.
Gotcha. One thing that I've noticed is different is back in the day when Sandtown Middle School opened, it was the second year that there were 14 trailers there. And I guess the school system caught up with capacity and they went away. I have observed, and it's not a complaint, but Westlake has those trailers that I guess, to your point, have demonstrated that the growth is tough to absorb. And I was just wondering, how many classrooms are there in those trailers?
They have about 6 trailers out there. EC West has about 5 to 6 trailers. And Langston Hughes was built a little bit bigger than Westlake. So that's why you don't see trailers there, because they have a huge automotive wing in that school that absorbs a little bit more. The trailers, people don't like them, but it shows the case for growth. So for example, if the hot spot right now are in areas of South Fulton, specifically Westlake District, but also down in Fairburn and down in District 4 and City of South Fulton. So when we looked at census data, it was all red down there, letting us know this is a large area of growth. So before Langston Hughes was built, we had bought that land in anticipation because we had looked at the permits being pulled. Langston Hughes is only 10 years old and it's already on par with Westlake. Creekside is in comparison with Westlake around the same age. And even though there are smaller buildings, so 1,800 students fit very differently in that building because it's not a newer building. So as I tell parents will say, I don't like trailers. And one of the things that I tell them is that makes the case because we get grants from, of course, Capital Plan will pay for the school. However, we also get grants from the state of Georgia where they will give us money to rebuild the school as we show need. So it's not really complicated, but there's a system to it. And so it goes from there.
Gotcha. Well, I think you have a third presentation that you were going to do. So let's go ahead and do that. And Councilwoman Rowell would like to go next, Marilyn.
Okay.
Fine.
So hold on. I'm going to click off that. Let me share this again. In anticipation of, and this probably should have been my first presentation, but I wanted to go with the code of conduct since we've had so many questions. This past fall, we had really heated conversations about K-8 school in East Point. They did not want the K-8 school. And so there are other communities, North and South, who want it. And so one of the things that we are discussing and vocalizing with the community to see how they feel is bringing the idea of K-8 STEM academies that would help us feed into the new STEM high schools. There's one on the north side and there's one on the south side. And so just some of the outcomes of K-8, you usually see K-8 in private schools and or charter schools sometimes. And so one of the things that we are hoping to do, and STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. One of the things that we are really focused on for our students is making sure that as we build them starting in kindergarten in the STEAM mindset, that those would be the students who would go directly into Global Impact and or Innovation Academy. Currently on South and North, there is one school up north that is STEM certified, and there's one school down south that is STEM certified, which is EC West. In addition, One of the things that we will do, a lot of parents have a lot of anxiety about sending their children to middle school. And so this would keep kids in the same school. It would align for deeper relationships, more of a family environment. And these are just some of the things that we believe will come with the K-8 STEAM. I previously said that Palmetto Elementary School is a perfect place because Palmetto Elementary School used to be a high school. So it is unusually big and it has a really big space. And what we have found at that school specifically, there are parents who starting in 4th grade, enrollment starts to drop as they try to find a middle school for their child. So this would be a perfect leeway into that. And that would also take away some of the overcrowding that we're seeing down at Bear Creek. And so our path forward, these are some of the K-8 schools that are already doing it, but we would have a really integration curriculum and instruction, but also partnerships with Tri-Cities High School for the arts magnet, them coming and helping the K-8 really be steeped into that arts, but also having a deep connection with the other STEM school on the South Side and Global Impact so that students knew that there was a connection and what the goal, the ultimate goal would be. This is not held in stone. We are doing in May and June, we're going to hold multiple face-to-face meetings beginning in May and also host virtual community engagements on the benefits of K-8 STEAM academies beginning in May 2022. And so as we go through and for our facility plan 2027, whether it's the 2 schools in North Fulton, whether it's Camp Creek, or whether it's Palmetto, we are going to be having those conversations so that families can get if they want that option or not. So I'll pause if there are any questions.
I saw a question about getting volunteer credits and how to go about doing that.
So students can, through their high school counselors, they can go through and they can partner. We have several partners that will help them. They can also get credits throughout the high school that they attend. So JRTC offers credits. The agriculture program down at Creekside offers volunteer credits. And so do some of the other programs within the high school. If you're in the Beta Club at Westlake, they do a lot with A. Philip Randolph. And the other elementary schools, they were just at Wolf Creek, reading to the students for volunteer. So opportunities. So through the high school counselors will really handle that.
Do you guys have anything for elementary kids?
For volunteer?
Yes.
Yes, so they usually do that through Beta Club, starting in 3rd or 4th grade. And that's a very organized process where they go that.
Okay, how does a person get information on that?
They just need to call A. Philip Randolph and ask who is the sponsor for the Beta Club and ask them, do they have any more additional volunteer activities for this school year?
You said someone didn't want the STEAM schools. What were their reasons for not wanting it?
I think there were concerns about having kindergartners and 8th graders in the same building. But if you go to any K-8 school, they're not in class together. I think it's just a host of issues that they were concerned about. Any other questions? It was a lot for tonight. I do have a community meeting on Monday. And during this meeting, we will have Ingrid Huff there and she will talk about it and you will be able to hear. She's the expert in this. She's been doing this for 20+ years. So she's very well versed in the whole process. In addition, we'll be honoring our top 10 seniors at all of my high schools. And we had 59 students who graduated with associate's degrees at Langston Hughes High School. So we will be honoring them also.
Well, great. We will certainly thank you, Board Member Warren, for continuing to participate in our meetings every month. And should people have questions or the like, we can send links out via our distribution list, which people can sign up for at www.sandtown.org.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me and I'll see you guys Monday.
Great.
We appreciate it. Okay. It's been busy. Okay. Our next person up is Council Member Catherine Rowell. Catherine Rowell.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to go through a couple quick updates. On Monday, May 16th from 10 to 3, in partnership with CORE, we'll be doing vaccinations at Quality Living Services at 4001 Danforth Road. We'll have all 3 vaccines available, Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J. If you need your vaccination or a booster, please take advantage of the opportunity. You can check my Facebook page and register. So we want to make sure we have adequate supplies between vaccinations and boosters. In addition, many of you have reached out regarding our City of South Fulton spring cleanup. That will be occurring Saturday, May 21st from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Merck Road. You'll also have the opportunity to shred documents on site on that day. We are telling everybody to be in line by 1:30 so they can process everyone. In partnership with Better Homes and Gardens Cascade, we have Cookie with a Cop coming up on May 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. This is your opportunity to meet with local officers. They'll answer any questions, and they'll also take tips if there are things you're concerned about in the community that you want to share. Our community policing unit will be on hand, and that event, again, will be held at Sandtown Pub from 6 to 8 on May 19th. And finally, me and Councilwoman Gums will be sending out information. We're going to have a public works town hall meeting. Many of the questions that you have are centered around capital improvement projects that we want to brief you on, and that'll be an opportunity to do that. So other than that, there's only one thing I'll touch on because I've heard other speakers talk about it. The City of South Fulton also will be going through redistricting as a result of the U.S. Census. And as a result of that, if you're currently in District 1, that won't change. It will mean that I'll push into District 2 a little bit. Those maps have not been finalized as of yet, but as we get closer, we'll be sharing those and making those maps available to the public. And that really concludes my updates. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to take them. And I want to encourage everybody to just take advantage of early voting. In our area, we have them in 3 locations. That is the Cascade Library, the Evelyn Laurie Library, the Southwest Art Center, and the Wolf Creek Library. So there are all options for you to take advantage of earlier voting through May 20th, election day being the 24th.
Councilwoman Rao, one question that's come up is people were wondering about the land disturbance next to west of Sandtown Crossing.
That is the Popeyes that Hank Aaron had purchased prior to his untimely death. It was actually supposed to be built probably about 1.5 years ago, and so they've resumed. Right. Well, I'd also heard there's some land disturbance behind, I guess, the daycare west of that property. That's the Carter Development Project. Okay. Carter USA. Yes, Carter Development Project that, of course, they presented to the Sandtown Community Association. That will have some multifamily on the back. It's a mixed use development, and it'll have 3 commercial development sites on the front. So they'll be subdividing that land, and they're already recruiting as it relates to looking for retail tenants for the front parcels that would be facing Camilton Road. And so we're working really hard to respond to the community's request for sit-down dining in the area. Right.
How do we go about getting I guess, a layout of the two areas that Harvey just mentioned?
They can be found on the city's website. If you go to Community Development and Regulatory Affairs, it will show you, you can click on zoning applications, and it will show you all the applications that have come before the city. So you'll see them under two categories: zoning applications and modifications. So there are two different tabs, and they'll have different projects, but those are all the ones that we've heard since the inception of the city.
Is the Carter one that Harvey just mentioned the same one that would impact the Woodside Hills subdivision, or is that something even different?
Something that is
something different.
completely different.
Okay, and so what's the status of the one that would impact the Woodside Hills subdivision?
That project has been approved. It has some conditions imposed on it by the Planning Commission, as well as myself, as it relates to coordinating and getting commitments from GDOT from any improvements along Camilton Road between Wallace and Camp Creek. So they have to coordinate with that, as well as put up some money to support those improvements. So they have to deposit with the city of South Fulton money for the design aspect of that work. One of the things that we learned that can help move projects along with GDOT is if the design for the road improvements are already in place. So Kimberly Horn is their traffic engineers. They would have to work with GDOT to address whatever issues GDOT has.
Okay, so that one sounds like it's down the road quite a bit then. I mean, pushed out quite a bit.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions?
Dr. Rao, this is Kay Callahan. Does that mean that that development has been approved by the city to move forward?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, if there are no further questions, is Council Member Kamalitha Gomes present?
I am. Good evening, everyone. And again, thank you for the opportunity. Just to be quite honest, Councilwoman Dr. Rao has pretty much covered everything that's happening in the city and in District 1 and 2 from top to bottom. I do know that, and I encourage residents to attend the upcoming zoning meeting that will be happening, I believe it's Tuesday. Am I correct in that date, Councilwoman? Because I don't have it.
Yes,
The
you are.
10th. The 10th.
This coming Tuesday. There are some activities that are proposed for the district. And I do know that the information about petitions that have been circulating around the city in regards to a package store at 166, I have gotten your comments. And then also to a lot of feedback from the community in regards to that. So if you have feedback or concerns, I do encourage you to actually attend that meeting. It will be a virtual meeting, and that is also on our website. And that is also too, there are a few projects that are coming up, projects, developments that are coming up in the district. Certainly there are developers that are pushing to place their applications in for projects, especially the one at Enon and Van Diver. And they are working with some constituents that are being directly impacted, but they will be starting to have larger community input meetings coming up very soon. So stay tuned to that. And as far as Wolf Creek Amphitheater transition, the county voted to have that transitioned over and leased over to the city of South Fulton. I can't give you the official wording on the transition because our city attorney has not finalized all of that as of yet, but we should be in place to have final transition before the June celebration that is proposed for Wolf Creek Amphitheater. And pretty much that's all that I have at this time. Of course, you know, you can always reach out, find me on Facebook. That was an awesome presentation. School board member Franchesca, Warren, if you can send that information, because I do want to encourage residents to come out so I can place that in my newsletter as well. But other than that, that's all I have. Thank you for your time. Any questions? All right.
Yes, I have a question. This is Phyllis Reed. Is it true that Wolf Creek Amphitheater is built on top of a landfill? And if that's true, what was actually disposed of at that landfill?
So yes, it is true that Wolf Creek Amphitheater has parcels that are on some landfills. And EPA, actually, I don't know what was there prior to that, but I just do know that EPA, and that has been part of the transition as far as the delay in transition to the city of South Fulton, because certainly the county is trying to make sure that they're doing their due diligence, because if anything happens on those particular parcels under the city's, I guess, ownership, they want to make sure that the county is not fined. So they just doing their due diligence, and that is the reason for the delay. But I'm not an EPA expert, so I'm not completely sure what was there prior to that, but I do know that it is a landfill.
Hi, this is Lynn Reed. Can I ask you a question, Councilwoman Gomes? Are we actually, the city of South Fulton, are we going to own Wolf Creek, or are we going to be leasing it? Because I saw a press release that mentioned leasing.
So speaking with the city attorney, leasing was not the proper term to use. We are in discussion of having the transition over. However, the EPA and the due diligence that is still not finalized. So at this point in time, for us to use it, we have to enter into a memorandum of understanding. So we will be able to pretty much have concerts, have activities at Wolf Creek Amphitheater and not have to go through the county to do those activities. So that's where we are at this point in time. All right, if you all have any additional questions, again, please feel free to reach out, email me, call me, and I'll be more than glad to answer your question. I know it's been a long meeting with great information, so I don't want to belabor it anymore.
So I was wondering, I think we heard the fire report earlier. Is there a police report from anyone?
Doesn't seem like anybody's here.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any more comments or questions, we just want to say how much we appreciate everyone taking the time out of their schedule and having the concern to come to the community meeting. We hope to see you next month. You will get a link. We think we're gonna do have maybe 1 or 2 meetings in the summer, which is something we usually don't do, but we may have 1 more or we may have 2 more before we come back in September. So if there's nothing else that anyone has to say or wants us to know or make comments about, again, I say we appreciate you coming. Thank you, Harvey, for being here. Thank you, Donald, for the Zoom. And I'm Marilyn Lee, and I just want to tell everybody to have a good night and have a restful night and stay in prayer. And
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.